This is part 2 of the series, What Stanford Never Taught Me, and we're going to be talking about how Stanford is a filter. So a lot of these top universities in America and top colleges, really what they represent, I already talked about in the last video. If you didn't see that, make sure you go watch that. I already talked about in the last video how really the education of these top schools is not like that great, in the sense that you have these really accomplished people, but they're not often the best people to actually teach you, because they don't have and haven't spent time learning how to actually teach. It is an art in a sense. Stanford and top colleges are a filter because they have really selective admission criteria. And because it's so selective, in the US, you have to take certain exams, you have to have good grades, you also have to do extracurricular activities. And so what you're doing is you're attracting a certain kind of person. You're attracting a certain kind of person who is able to handle a high amount of workload, a lot of different clubs, on top of schoolwork, on top of maybe doing some research, even high school on the side, on top with constantly learning and being super adept and academically smart. And so that's why it's a filter, and that's why typically when you go to these top schools and you look at how often people succeed after they finish graduating from these institutions, the success rate is very high. But I want you to understand that it's like, I didn't learn all these things from going to Stanford. It's like Stanford is kind of what they call like a kind of like sample bias, in the sense like it's a bias because all these people got in and now they're associated with Stanford. But it's like Stanford didn't really help them become who they are. They were already like that. Stanford just went out in the fields and just grabbed these people based off of a certain selection criteria that was extremely stringent and extremely hard to fill. And so now really this value of Stanford, like I mentioned before, is the network, because now you have all these extremely filtered and well-selected people who are very intelligent, very hardworking, very capable, very just sometimes eye-opening, have different perspectives. They're all in one place on a campus. Same thing with Harvard, all the other top colleges, you name it, the top 10s, right? All of those are really just filters. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because once you leave this college, people always just imagine that, oh, if you go to this top college, and I also had this like delusion too, it's like, oh, I'm gonna learn from the best, I'm gonna, be the best, I'm gonna become the best. I would argue that people who go to the top colleges, if they didn't go to a top college, but if you had those same people who were selected, they would still be successful, because the traits that you have to get into a top college are such like matched with that of becoming successful, because you have to have extreme discipline, extreme hard work, extreme grit, right, to get into here, because you're competing with, almost like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of other students to get into these very select spots, right? And as a result, you should understand that if you are not at one of these top institutions, that's fine. Like it's not like we're here learning stuff that you're not. Often we're not, right? It's just that like these people just represent a group that has been extremely ambitious, extremely, all these things that just brought together. But like you can still be extremely ambitious and grow yourself, and you don't have to go to this top school. I think a lot of times people just think, oh, you're going to a top university, you're going to receive the best education. Well, the best education I ever got is probably from talking to all the other people here and learning from their perspectives. It's not actually anything I learned in class, right? So you have to really understand that as just like a mindset shift for a lot of you out there who probably aren't at top colleges, is that top colleges are just a filter, and that the reason why people succeed is because they were kind of already going to succeed in some sense. Like yes, Stanford and Harvard, they give you this brand name that helps you and almost ensures that you're going to even succeed beyond that point, because now it's like, okay, you're really smart, you're really capable, you're really hardworking, you're really diligent, have you all these things, and we're going to give you a brand name of Stanford. And then now it's like, okay, yeah, you're going to be successful, right? But my point is, ignore the brand name of Stanford. You're really smart, you're hardworking, you're diligent, right? Even if you don't get into these top schools, you can still become successful. You still have the most important traits. It's like a lot of times we shield the success and we're saying, oh, it's because he's at that top university, that's why he's successful. No, he got into that top university because he had those certain traits, and those traits are actually what make you successful. Does the Stanford name help? Of course it does. But if you don't have it, it's not the end of the world, and that you can still achieve success in your own life, and you can still become much better than you currently are just by having the same traits. So I would focus on what kind of traits do people at top colleges have, right? even before they actually go to those schools. Like if you looked at the next admission cycle and who's getting accepted already, and you did a survey of all their traits, I guarantee you would find some of the same traits that make people successful in general. Like I'm talking about top entrepreneurs, people who didn't even go to college. You look at what traits they have, you look at the traits of people at top schools, it's gonna be similar because these schools have created their selection criteria in a way that is kind of creating an environment where they're selecting the most likely people to succeed. So if you have those criteria already, you will also succeed, right? It's like Stanford is not teaching us some crazy thing that's going to like help us succeed, right? It's just an environment where we get to meet other really ambitious people, and it's like, kind of surrounding yourself. I've talked about this before. If you surround yourself with really successful people, you'll become the next successful person. But I want to, make you question and understand this. It's like, is really these top schools the only place that you can surround yourself with successful people? There's a lot of successful people in this world who didn't go to college, a lot of successful people in this world who did go to college, but not just the top universities. And then it's like, if you surround yourself with those people, the effect will be the same. If you took all the top entrepreneurs who never went to any college, right? Who maybe I don't know if these people went to college or not, but let's just imagine Jeff Bezos, and you have Mark Zuckerberg, or maybe you have Elon Musk or something like that, right? And you have all these people and they're all your friends. Aren't you going to become better and become successful? Yes, you are. So it's not about like the college they went to. It's about the personality traits they have and they've developed that has helped them get into this kind of school. And the point for you is like work on developing those traits and those things and going through your own journeys, because that is what's going to make you successful regardless of this kind of outside thing of, going to a top school. It's a very good example of what actually makes you successful if you boil down and like look underneath the screen of all these like top schools. It's just they have really exceptional people. But how do you become an exceptional person? Nobody is just born that way, right? I mean, some people are born extremely smart, but that doesn't mean they're going to be successful, right? So it's like you are grown through your experiences over time, and that leads you to, especially combined with your mindset, combined with the community you have. So I would really argue, that like these top schools are really just putting you in an environment where there's a lot of other successful people. But now with the internet, you can be surrounded by successful people. Like if you're watching this, I don't know, maybe you're in the US, maybe you're not even in the US, right? It's like, okay, you're learning from me, for somebody who's at Stanford, right? Like that's already breaking the barrier of like, only like, successful people can only stay with successful people, right? It's like, no, that's not like a true thing. And it's like, you can access really intelligent people who are working hard, who want to become successful, and that will still influence and rub off on you. And that's really why I created, Inner Circle, because Inner Circle was really the idea that you find like-minded individuals who want to become better versions of themselves and achieve success. And if you do that, you'll have a very similar effect to what happens here at like these college campuses. These college campuses that are really, elite, they have really intelligent people and you're surrounded by that and you just want to become better. But we can kind of recreate that in a different setting as well by just having really motivated individuals in a circle and in a like smaller community, and they'll all push each other to become better as well. So just understand that a lot of people are not going to be at these top schools, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you can't be successful. It just means you need to understand why people from top schools typically become successful. Of course, there's a lot of other variations. There's a lot of luck involved. There's a lot of connections that people have. But I'm talking about if you remove all that and you focus on what you can actually control, there's a lot of similarities that you can learn, and you don't have to be at a top school to realize them. If you have any comments or questions, put them in the comments below. Otherwise, subscribe for more, and we're going to be on to the next part.